And next, Mr. Reidinger. How are you, Mr. Reidinger? Okay, tell me how things are going.
I've had a few small mishaps since the last time I saw you.
Okay, so tell me this.
Yes.
Tell me this. In this mishap, are you have you been as forthcoming, as open, putting everything out in the open air as you possibly could be?
Yes and no. The main thing that Loretta spoke with me about was being more clear and more, just being more detailed on my past before I lost my temper or anything like that, because someone said something to me, and before I even said something back to him in the house, it was from the elder board. I went to the staff and said, you know, I'm just coming to bring this up to you before it escalates and I get in trouble. And my exact words were, I'm coming to you before I cuss someone out or lose my temper. And the way it was kind of spun around, I guess is the best way to put it, boss, was that once it got through like 3 or 4 people, it was Brian cussed out and lost his temper, but that was clarified that it was not that I did go to staff, and I was just bringing it to his attention before I got in trouble. And it was some of the stuff, the remarks that the elder board said through the door after they closed it on me, and it did make me a little angry, and it would make anyone a little angry the way they did it. And that's why, before it escalated to anything, because in my past I'd have sit there and, I mean, who knows, I'd have kicked the door in, I would have flipped out, cussed everyone running down the hallway like I've done in the past. And I'll be the first one to admit it. I had a very bad temper issue. So it was actually commended by Loretta on the way it was handled this time in front of Gervasio.
Okay, so that's a step in the right direction.
I got prescribed pain medicine when I was in the military, and that progressively got more and more and more as, you know, time went on. I kept going on deployments, and they would just give you prescriptions. When I got out, there was a time period where I had a lapse from when I was active duty to being over at the VA hospital, and I ran out of pain medicine, and I got really sick. And I didn't know. I had no clue about drugs. And my neighbors, he's like, you know, you're dope sick, because he knew the medicine I was taking. I'm like, no, there's no way. I don't get high. You know, I don't do that kind of stuff. And I blew him off for a few days, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And finally, he came over. He's like, dude, just, you know, if you snort this, you'll feel a million times better. And I did, and it was just like gone. I mean, I was puking. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep, but I was stuck in bed. So that really, that messed me up right there. Ultimately, I'm an alcoholic. I am a very, very bad alcoholic, and that was when I was in the military. So I started coping in a bad way at an early age. And this started in high school.
Really?
Yeah, my drinking was pretty heavy. I mean, I got Bud Light tattooed on me to try to get free beer. You know, that's how bad of an alcoholic I was. And the pills, you know, I couldn't function as an alcoholic. You know, it messed up my marriage. But you give me pills, I'll do whatever you want. You know, I can go to work, I can do this. It's like a superhero thing at first, but when it gets out of hand, then everything gets out of control. So that's why it grabs people like that. There were some minor steps that, you know, I still have a lot of work to do, but I'm acknowledging it and I'm correcting it as it comes, and I'm working on it.
And that's what we want to see. We want to see you keep working. I know that you've been on lockdown for a little while.
Yes.
For these behaviors that we're describing, right?
A long while, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And probably you're trying to get out with that escort to go to his vet center appointment was because you wanted to get out and get some air yourself.
Yeah, and I'm working on my 4-step right now also.
Okay.
And it's taking a toll on me, I guess my mood-wise, because I'm looking at me, and that's not always the funnest thing to do, and recognizing me. and learning me. It's
But you're changed. You probably have some changed behavior
there's
that wasn't always there.
I've had a lot of moments where I've been kind of to myself in my nutshell, and I kind of get stuck in the 4-step, and that's, I guess, the best way for me to explain it. So that's why John Hale, well, sorry, I can't say that. That's why the other client said, you know, listen, you can come to the vet center, check it out. They have, offer PTSD stuff, which, now after talking to Gervasio, that I do need to just stick with talking to Scott Heisman. But it probably did have a lot to do with, and it, not intentionally, as Loretta said, but, there was other motives along with, just going to the vet center and taking my step work with me, because that's what I did on the bus and stuff like that.
You can rush through your steps. You can run around to this opportunity for treatment, to that opportunity for treatment, and use it as a shield from really sitting down with your treatment provider and digging in. Okay? And what we're going to encourage you to do is to slow down and to start digging in and taking one session at a time and setting some goals for that session with your treatment provider and then working through it. Even though that they're coming in here after having gotten into trouble with the law and having a lot of times fallen into a pretty bad spot in their personal lives. So you see that, but what you saw just before that was a service member who was at their very best. They were performing at their peak. They were doing things, sacrificing, giving of themselves for their country, and being asked to do it under conditions that were certainly uncomfortable, to say the least. We are the helping hand. We are that helping hand that sort of helps them bridge the gap between them having kind of fallen from grace, if you will, and coming back into the community, readjusting and reacquainting to civilian life in a healthy way. Okay. And
that's the game plan.
Is there anything that he's missed that I should know?
Your Honor, just for clarification
On the
purposes.
positive side, I know that you want to recommend a sanction, and I want to hear about that in a moment, but I think he has failed to mention a couple of positive things, and I want to make sure.
And that's what I was going to say, for clarification
Thank you.
purposes, he had a week where he did very well, and you didn't mention that. There was a week with no issues. That was a week we had court. And also, you did very well during that week, you had reported an issue about another participant there. So we want to applaud you for that as well.
Thank you.
Doesn't he have an injury too?
Yes, he has another, where you had declined the use of pain pills from
Yes.
service,
Thank
right?
you. Yes.
Congratulations.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm very moved by that, and I think the others should be able to bear witness to that. You had an option. You had an option to fall completely off. Okay?
They walked in with it in the cup.
You had a
Yeah, so
choice to
Good
go
for
through
you.
and do some of the old behaviors that you were doing, but you chose something that's better for Brian Reidinger, okay? So I think that deserves a round of applause from your comrades. So I commend you
Thank you, Your Honor.
significantly for that. We've still got work to do.
Yes.
It's undoubted. You've got some, go ahead and tell us about what's the sanction that's being recommended.
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, I got one more positive.
Okay.
So with the positive that we just talked about, the team is giving you an opportunity for a day pass. It'll be 8 hours through the day that you can go spend time with your family.
Thank you.
And for the sanction, for the behavior that was mentioned, you are going to, the 15 days that was on hold, that is now activated.
Okay.
Okay.
I kind of figured that.
Okay.
That's,
So here's the plan
Deserve that.
for your pass, because I think you've earned it.
thank you.
You've completely earned it. I'd like it to be at least 8 hours so you can get a nice visiting, okay? Be with your family and enjoy it. I want you to have a plan for how you're going to cope with any issues that might arise during that 8-hour period, because I don't want you to have an issue of where you use, okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
I want to make sure that case management has seen that and reviewed that with you, and I want to make sure that they know where you're going to be,
Yes,
what
Your
your
Honor.
intentions are of how you're going to spend that visit, And then I'd like to hear kind of an after-action review of how it
Absolutely.
went.
Absolutely.
Okay.
One question I want to clarify at the house, for the single day passes, they offer a 9 to 9 pass. It's a green pass, and that's pretty much the limit. Would that be optional? Instead of just 8 hour, that'd be 12. Well, kind of like 10 and a half due to drive time.
I'm fine with that.
With my mom, and it's going to be with my mom and dad. My mom's sitting right there.
Yes,
So,
and I'm glad she's here.
And she has my telephone number as well.
yeah, she does.
And so the other thing, the time that's on the shelf, if you will,
Yes.
that we placed up there, I'm going to take 10 off.
Thank you,
I'm
Your
going
Honor.
to take 10 down, and that's going to be the extension, because you came in here and you showed some forthrightness, and you've had some bobbles, but you've had some progress. We've got him mentoring with who, Captain Riley? All right, so you've got Fred and Cindy today, Mr. Reidinger. Come back after you're finished.
I do like this program because it makes me have the structure that I need. It doesn't suggest a structure. It doesn't say, well, you can do it, but here's the door, you can leave, For me, now I can only speak for myself, but it was like, I'm looking at this prison time, or complete the program, follow the structure. Obviously, I'm going to do everything I can to follow this program. And for years, I've just bounced in and out of court and in and out of jail and in and out of treatments, just to get over on something or somebody, or to get out of a situation as fast as possible. And this one is actually making me sit down, and I have no choice but to work on myself. And that's what I really needed to get to the point where I'm at today, where I have no desire to use. I have no desires at all. The only thing that I'm struggling with now is my behavior. And that's a good thing about this court, because even though I'm passing my urinalysis, it's a behavior treatment court. So now once we get that under control, where you're not using, now we can focus on me. And that's what they're hammering me on now, which, it's positive stages. It's stressful at times, it's hard. It'll mentally break you down. But if you can be strong enough to get past it, then, the outcome is ultimately the best possible.
They are not looking to be anybody's hero. They are that citizen who would help that stranded vehicle and change the tire, feed the baby, do whatever had to be done in that instance, and you would never know that they were a veteran. And then there they would be gone. And they might be going, not knowing where they're going to be eating that night, or not having a place to go home to. But you would never know it. So it's that level of strength that I find, even whenever they are dealing with issues, that is in each one of our participants.
What about Mr. Reidinger?
Well, I will tell you, his mom did not look thrilled about him going anywhere. There was no kind of happiness. There was no smile. There was nothing. I think there's one part. I think Teresa said he'll be going home with mom, or somebody said that, and she went.
She had her poker face on.
It was. I mean, it was
very much so.
Well, but did you see the interaction between him and her? He turned around as soon as that got said and looked right at her, and she went
Okay.
like that. So I took that as she sanctioned it. She doesn't usually give you a whole lot of feedback,
She doesn't.
but I took that as she was letting him know it was okay.
I've had multiple
But maybe to be on his
conversations with
best
her.
behavior.
Right, right. So keep that
And
I'm
touch.
watching you. Yeah.
I'm seeing that.
She's scared.
I do
I
too.
have had multiple
I think she's
conversations with her.
scared.
She won't go looking through his information or his paperwork for a DD-214 or any of his stuff because she's afraid of syringes. I mean, she doesn't want to involve herself. And I think she's been duped a bunch of times by him and is just, he's ran her out of steam.
And I'm sure that that's all true, but we're trying to work on a new day here, and I think she sees that, because she's been here to bear witness to the things and the accountability we're trying to hold him to. So I'm hopeful that was a sanction of, yes, I'm acknowledging that we're gonna try this out.
Yeah.
She's one of the active family members that we have. I mean, she
Yes.
comes frequently. I noticed about her.
Well, I thought his response to the 15 days was positive. I don't think that he, showed body language like he normally does when he gets sanctioned. So he was prepared.
And he was transparent. He was very.
He was.
Usually, I have to go back and clarify what he said, but this time I didn't have to.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fortunately, I think everyone here today, from my point of view, seemed pretty respectful, which I thought was important,
I
and
did too.
pretty willing to hear the constructive criticism without getting defensive. So I thought as a whole that was pretty good.
Well, I think the idea was not my brainchild. Once I recognized that I was dealing with veterans that were coming into the criminal court system, I went to look to see, when I found out we weren't handling it here locally or within our state much differently than what we were doing here locally, I went to look outside, and I found Robert Russell, a judge in Buffalo, in New York. And he had started to see the same thing. He was a problem-solving court judge, a drug court judge is the particular problem-solving program that he had worked with. He started seeing them come into his program, and he started to talk about it and write about it. And that's whenever I first got wind that there was this notion of there is a way that we can do something different for our service members, our military service members. He was a medic, a combat medic. He was in his second tour in Iraq. He was in what we thought was a safer operation. In his first tour, he was on the ground. In his second tour, he was in an air ambulance unit. And August the 8th was the day that he was doing a day-to-night transition training, a routine type of exercise that they do. He was getting training hours. We knew he was going to be doing it. And the plane, the Black Hawk, it crashed into a lake in Iraq. So that was, completely unfathomable, something we would have never expected, even though we were prepared that something could happen because we knew that he was in a very dangerous place.
But you're never really prepared.
But you're never really prepared. And you're never prepared for a loss of a young life. And I think that's another thing that's part of what inspires me is that these lives, we can never get Stephen back. But these lives can be strengthened. They can learn how to cope with the struggles and the experiences that they've had. And they can go forward and they can do something great in this world. They're young and they're strong, and they know duty and honor.